read now new history of how Stalinist regime functioned, and I discovered that there the logic was this one. I'm sorry if you know this story, but I will repeat it. I found it wonderful. Let's imagine that we are in Moscow in 1935. I'm Stalin. I give a long speech. Then there is a debate. And then in that debate, one of you who is stupid enough stands up and attacks me, criticizes me. Of course, we all know, next day, the talk of the town would be who was the last to have seen alive that guy, no? But now let's imagine something else, that another guy stands up and attacks the first guy who criticized me, Stalin, saying something like, but are you crazy? Don't you know that we don't criticize Comrade Stalin here? I claim he, the second guy, would have disappeared even faster. You see what I mean? It was not only prohibited to criticize Stalin, it was prohibited to publicly announce this prohibition. This is why, although I had many polemics with her, I agree here with, personally, we are nonetheless friendly, Judith Butler, who claimed how the first subversive act in, okay, she doesn't consider herself a feminist, but nonetheless, in feminist struggle is to state openly oppression, like in today's liberal society, where women's oppression often has precisely this form of, you know, not only women are oppressed, but it's precisely considered tasteless and so on for them to publicly claim. You know, it's like what always fascinated me, this postmodern figure of a boss. It's no longer the traditional master who terrorizes you. It's something like, you know, today's boss. He's friendly with you, embraces you, did you have good sex last night, whatever, as if you are... But he still maintains all authority. You see what I mean? It is authority, unquestionable, but masked as friendship and so on and so on. And in such conditions, the first step, you really hurt him, is to claim, no, sorry, we are not colleagues, you are my boss. I'm subordinate to you, so please act like a boss. To, again, to break all this. So, this form of prohibiting the prohibition brings us to another topic which I develop in many of my books. I don't have now time to go into it, which always fascinated me. This gap between explicit and implicit, which characterizes every culture. What defines a certain culture at all levels, from a small community like a university department to larger communities, is that you don't only have rules which regulate your behavior. You also always have meta rules which tell you how to obey explicit rules. Like, there are some rules which prohibit something, but effectively you are expected to violate those rules. I think that many rules of patriarchal oppression are like that, in the sense that, for example, in the standard male chauvinist family, at least in the old one, today it's different, father, of course, wanted to discipline you and so on, but the message within the lines is go play with girls, just do it discreetly and so on, you know. To be part of some culture is precisely to know how a prohibition effectively functions. For example, I was told, I read some stupid manager report, that that's the big problem of Western companies doing business in China today. That there it's, you know, when you have a certain rule, it's extremely complex. Do you have to take that rule literally and so on and so on? And things get even more complex when you have the opposite paradox. Not rules which you are expected to violate them, but rules which give you the right to do something, but you are given this right only if you do not use it, you know. And I think this complexity is what characterizes ideology. Ideology is not so much in explicit rules as in this thick cobweb of unwritten rules which tell you how to treat explicit rules. Here, the superego agency, what in psychoanalysis is called superego, enters. Superego would have been precisely that when you have a certain legal prohibition, don't do this. Superego would have been the implicit message which means do it but discreetly or whatever, like the opposite injunction. Which is why, and I here refer to Etienne Balibar, the pupil of Louis Althusser, his wonderful reversal of Louis Althusser's classical formula, according to which, you know, an ideology interpolates individuals into subjects. By identifying yourself with a certain ideological call, you become subject of ideology, whatever you are. Your ideological identity, mother, father, teacher, socialist, liberal, whatever. Balibar's idea is that superego, if explicit ideology, interpolates individuals into subjects, like after you recognize yourself, for example, in a certain political ideology, you're not just an individual, you are subject, a liberal, fascist, whatever. Superego does the opposite. It interpolates subject into individuals. It reduces you, a superego call, to your unique individuality burdened with guilt and responsibility. This is why superego pressure gives rise to anxiety. In the eyes of the superego, I am alone. There is no big other beneath which I can hide. I am guilty as charged. How does this work today? A series of situations that characterize today's society, I claim, exemplify perfectly this type of superego individualization. Ecology, political correctness, poverty, up to the way debt, indebtedness functions in general. Does the predominant ecological discourse today not address us as a priori guilty, indebted to Mother Nature, under the constant pressure of the ecological superego agency? What did you do today to repay your debt to nature? Did you put all newspapers into a proper recycle bin? All the bottles of beer or cans of Coke? Did you use your car where you could have used a bike or some means of public transport? Did you use air conditioning instead of just opening wide your windows, and so on and so on? I think there is nothing progressive in this pressure. It's precisely when you want to address the true issue, what our industrial mega companies are doing, you know, superego reaction is, who are you to say this? Everyone can criticize big companies, but what did you do today? Did you separate all newspapers and so on and so on? I think this is perfect ideological machinery of addressing you as isolated individual and making you feel guilty, to terrorize you not to attend big questions. And I think the same goes for endless politically correct self-examination. Was my look at the flight attendant too intrusive and sexually offensive? Did I use any words with possible sexist undertones while addressing her? And so on and so on. The pleasure provided by such self-probing is evident. I claim that there is even a kind of a politically correct pleasure when, you know, some of my friends who are in this politically correct game, I see their pleasure. You know, I used an expression, but then I discovered I was still a racist. I thought I'm free of racism. No, but there was a shade of racism, that, and so on and so on. As for charity, recall how we are all the time bombarded by messages destined to make us feel guilty for our comfortable way of life. messages which simultaneously offer an easy way out. You can make a difference. Give $10 monthly and you will make a black orphan happy or whatever. Again, the ideological underpinning is easily discernible here. Did you see another example? A wonderful, and I really mean it, a very watchable, good movie, Inuit, Canadian Eskimo movie, The Fast Runner. You know, it's a retelling of an old Inuit myth, two tribes in conflict. Okay, the point is this one. In the original myth, it's a catastrophe at the end. Universal slaughter, the two tribes kill each other and so on. In the film, it's more upward, optimist ending. They just exile, not even kill, two bad guys, and then the tribes are reconciled. And then a totally stupid Western, white Canadian journalist attacked the director, an Inuit, accusing him of succumbing to consumerist culture. Like, why didn't you remain faithful to the authentic myth? Why do you introduce this happy end to make your movie more commercial and so on? And this journalist, got a correct answer. Namely, the Inuit movie director told him, no, you are a racist here. Because this idea of authenticity that you are trying to impose on us is your Western invention. He said, what I did with the myth, retell it in a new way. This is part of our culture. The original authentic version is not part of our culture. In our culture, in each new situation, you change the story, you retell the myth in a new way, and so on and so on.